it was a really big missed opportunity, really. There's Peter, a disciple of Jesus, lead follower of Jesus, the man, in many ways, the one who was the first to realize that Jesus was the Messiah, the first to do all sorts of things, the one who would charge in. And there he is, standing around the campfire or the fire, a safe distance, it says, from Jesus. And someone comes up to him and say, "Hey, don't you know Jesus?" Like, what an opportunity for mission, really. And it was a servant girl. It wasn't someone who was going to be threatening. It wasn't someone who was about to stab him or chop his head off or take him into prison. Just a servant girl. "I don't know him," he replied. And then it happened again. Another servant girl arrives, and then lots of people say, "Hey, didn't you know Jesus? Don't you know Jesus?" But he denies it again and again. And why was that? That's the question that crossed my mind a bit when I was reflecting on this, because this was the piece that I pulled out from that very long reading has been the bit that kind of struck me, partly because it's, I guess, what I've been thinking about anyways, a little bit. And it seemed that at that exact moment in time, Peter was not ready for that leap of faith to say that, yes, I know Jesus. He could have done all sorts of things. He could have launched into talking about how Jesus was the Messiah, how these were all the miracles he'd done, how he was there, he'd seen it, he was at that table, he'd eaten with him, he took Passover with him only yesterday. But he didn't say any of that, and he was scared. He was frightened. And I must admit, until this time, I'd always thought that, and maybe it was true, that his fear was the physical fear, the fear of being imprisoned, the fear of being crucified, and the fear of being beaten or whatever else was happening to Jesus. And for sure, I can totally believe that was really part of it, because these are not things you want, of course. On the other hand, Peter was strong, a fisherman, brave, courageous. As I thought, well, maybe that wasn't really the reason. I started to speculate. These are speculations a bit. The reading that Mim said that Peter followed at a safe distance, and maybe, just maybe, Peter was really happy being a follower of Jesus on Palm Sunday. Maybe in his mind he wanted to believe in the Messiah who came, who made everything easy, who solved the problems, who took Israel back by force, who healed people. It was great to be the right-hand person of the man who did everything, who was God, who sorted lots of problems out. But maybe that's not how it felt in that lonely place around the fire. And just maybe his realization was that, maybe he spoke the truth. Maybe at that point he didn't know Jesus, because all those thoughts about when Jesus said, "I'm the Messiah," he said, "I'm going to be crucified," essentially. He said, "This is not the easy path." Maybe none of that had really made sense until that point. And then, now I start to get it. But he wasn't ready for that leap of faith. And I know I've said it before in sermons, but it often feels like that to me, that every time you realise something about yourself or something about Jesus, there's a new layer of understanding, and it goes back and undoes some of the thoughts you'd had before. Excuse me. So the question I posed today was do we know who Jesus is? And just like when we know other people, of course we know people. We know Jesus, all of us here, I think, probably to some extent. But what's the next level of depth to knowing Jesus? Because we can't know it all. We can't know him totally, of course, but we can take a next step. But what do we need to admit that we're denying of the power of Jesus, or in ourselves and the way that we live our life to understand who Jesus is more? And then I thought, well, what could Peter have done? And Maybe because Peter's like us. You know, he was a guy. He was a fisherman. Jesus called him. He followed, and he went round. But I think of all the characters in the gospel, Peter is the one who seems to be most portrayed as he's just like one of you. He makes mistakes. He makes errors. He charges in when he shouldn't charge in. He hangs back when he should have charged in. You know, he makes all sorts of human things. Does human things, and he could have given up at that point. He could have just run away to the village. He could have gone back to fishing. I don't think he would have ever totally figured out the shame and the regret that he had from that moment. Maybe he would have turned that into bad things. Maybe he would have become an alcoholic, drinking wine by the Sea of Galilee to try and forget. Maybe he would have worked himself to death, fishing 20 hours a day to try and make good. Maybe he would have become a womanizer, a gambler. Who knows what he would have done. Gone away into the desert, tried to figure things out. Maybe he would have buried it in good things. He would have become a pillar of the community, perhaps. He would have senior in the church or the synagogue, done charitable work, thrown himself into all sorts of things. Maybe he would have been super supportive of his family, or had some hobby that he did, written a book, taken up yoga to escape. I don't know. None of these things are bad things unless they're being done to deny the reality of Jesus and the reality of who we are. In which case, they're still not bad, but they're not being there for the right reasons. Because if he'd have done that, he would have denied himself. Well, he would have denied Jesus the chance to work with him. He would have denied the Spirit the chance to blow through him. He would have denied what he truly became in the end. And what of Jesus in all this? Well, Jesus knew that Peter would deny him. He even told him. He even said, "Peter, you will deny me." And 3 times over and over again. Maybe that was just all the times that Peter had really denied Jesus throughout the whole ministry, when he didn't really believe what was going on, when he didn't really get it. And Jesus knew that. And he still said, "You're the rock." And he still chooses us now, despite all our denials. Chooses us to be children of God. And I guess, like all parents, you can't protect your children from everything. And our question is, how do we respond? How do we find the areas in our life where we deny Jesus, where we deny him the power to help us be the creations that he made of us? And then how, essentially, I think that means, how do we pick up our cross, or the cross, and follow him?